Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2 o'clock, Sunday, April 19th. I am the Soapbox Hero, and this is the second episode of the Quarantine Chronicles. This one will be a little shorter because I am waiting for a good friend of mine, Joshua Upshaw, to come and record an episode. He said he's got some stuff he wants to talk about, so we're going to get that loaded up here in about 30 minutes. In the meantime, I've got 30 minutes in the studio to kill. I wanted to talk a little bit. I want to wear my conspiracy theorist hat a little bit, only in that I find it very interesting, even in the light of the amount of documentaries on Netflix, Hulu, I mean everywhere, Amazon, all of these documentaries being, released to the public, and then you've got books being written. Joe Rogan's getting into a big one with Manson, what's the guy named Tim O'Neill, something like that. I was just watching the first half of that before I came in the studio, but I find it very interesting that in the wake of such a life-altering and really like world-altering, like this pandemic is going to have far-reaching effects and consequences that span far beyond just one individual person's life. But the amount of people impacted is really incalculable at this point. But everyone, I want to say everyone, so many people are cocksure that there's nothing to see here. There's no conspiracy. There's no wrongdoing. This is just, out of the blue, freak occurrence. Just the attitude of there's nothing to see here. Like, stop, get your tinfoil hats off. You guys are being ridiculous. This is misinformation. This is why we have people like protesting and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying that this is, that we're in the middle of a conspiracy. But whoever does know that they're in the middle of a conspiracy, right? I was watching this Netflix documentary called How to Fix a Drug Scandal. And the gist of it, for those of you who haven't seen it, is in the state of Massachusetts, right around the same time, there were two similar cases with chemists who were handling criminal cases. They'd basically, if you get arrested for suspected of having cocaine in your pocket, right? They take what they think is cocaine, send it to a lab, and this lab has to verify, yep, this is cocaine, or no, it's not. It's something else. Or any other drug, right? They have to send it off to a lab to have it chemically tested. Well, around the same time, in two different labs, there was one person in each one of these labs who was doing something sketchy. And in these labs, FYI, which I think is important to mention, they handled on their half of the state all of the drug evidence to be tested for that half. So there's two labs handling the entire amount of drugs for the whole state. All the drug cases, they're all getting sent to one of these two labs. And in both of them, there was a chemist who was doing things they shouldn't have done. One of them was doing drugs, was a junkie, come to find out, even when she got the job, she was looking for drugs and found a jackpot. They did no pre-drug screening. And my job for Home Depot 10 years ago, I had to get drug tested. But these people working in a drug lab for the state, handling all of the drug cases for that half of the state of Massachusetts, it's not important to do a drug test to get employment or randomly throughout employment. Very interesting. In either one of these labs. And so in that lab, we had that junkie, right? So that person ended up doing things. I'm not going to spoil all of it. And then on the other side of the state, there was somebody who was dry testing. So basically, they would take if they had like 15 suspected cocaine specimens, she would test one of them and then apply the results to the rest of that handful that she grabbed without ever opening the bags. And of course, this person didn't try to be smart about it. She was testing like 4 times any of her peers, the number of tests. She was getting awards. She was getting whatever. Nobody investigated her. None of her peers said, hold on a second. We're all working as fast as we can. There's no way that this person could be doing this many tests. Like, how is this possible? So anyway, the point of the documentary was about all of the people who were affected by these tampered or what's the right word? Yeah, I guess tampered with samples. Those people, their cases should have been thrown out of court. So thousands of people had no idea that they were a part of we'll come to find out, a cover-up conspiracy by the district attorney and the attorney general in that state, several DAs, and the attorney general at the time covered it up because they didn't want to have to deal with all of the bad press. They didn't want to have to deal with releasing all of those people. They didn't want to have to deal with retrying those cases, which is what's supposed to happen, which would cost the state a ridiculous amount of money. And if it wasn't for this stubborn, in both cases, there was one stubborn lawyer, one stubborn defense attorney who was like, no. So we need justice here. Like, we caught these people doing wrongdoings, and that's great that those people, even though, again, I'm not going to spoil it and talk about sentences, but appalling short amount of time these people got for mishandling thousands of people's cases and potentially forcing them to be wrongfully imprisoned, they get next to nothing as far as the prison sentence. Meanwhile, people with, simple possession charges are going away for 2, 3, 4 times as long as these chemists. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, none of those people knew it was a conspiracy. Even the defense attorneys were like, well, maybe there's just, maybe they're not looking at it good enough, or maybe we need to bring more attention. Nobody knew in the middle of a conspiracy to cover something up that that's what was happening. It's only afterward that you realize it. JFK, right? So many things have been written about JFK. So many documentaries, so many books, so many people have looked into that. And again, what did the government do? The government said, no. We took care of it. You can trust us. There's no conspiracy here. Meanwhile, now there's all this evidence that it was the CIA the whole time. The CIA was behind all of it. And they've been behind a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't understand people's, like, their need to shut down any possibility that something's awry. I don't understand that knee-jerk reaction of a lot of people that I see. And of course, it's Facebook. I mean, Facebook has turned into this ugly machine. There's very little productive things happening through Facebook anymore. From what I can see, there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of look this way while we do this. But more than anything, there's just so much division. There's so many people fighting about stuff that, really doesn't impact their lives nearly to the point of a lot of these real issues happening out here where your freedoms are being taken and legislators and elected officials are giving themselves more power and making more money. There's a damn senator, I think I did this on, I'll probably repeat this from the first Quarantine Chronicle, but for anyone who didn't listen to that one, there's a senator, the senator of Vermont, who is worth $257 million, and he's going to make decisions on behalf of the average citizen in Vermont. $257 million is what he's reported to be worth, which people with that kind of money have more money than that. They have plenty of other things around that they don't necessarily report honestly to the IRS. So $257 million, that person, and he's making decisions for, a 25-year-old who's waiting tables at fucking Applebee's. Like, what does that person know about being a regular citizen, right? He lives a very different life. He's playing a very different game in this reality than any of the people that he's making decisions for. Meanwhile, there was a senator in Arkansas that made his worth, according to Politico or whatever, was like $8,500. And I'm like, okay, that dude, like, he probably knows a lot about what it is to be broke and paycheck to paycheck. And like, how the hell does a senator end up being worth that amount of money? That's the real question that we need to really be asking. But those people, you're telling me that those people didn't do anything wrong, didn't cut a corner, didn't choose, the money over the people at any step to acquiring that amount of wealth. And I don't know anybody that would say, yep, I'm sure he's never lied. He's never, signed legislature that, that hurt people, the average person, that made it more difficult for them to acquire wealth or acquire, health services or whatever the thing is. You're telling me he's never done anything except vote on behalf of the people's interest? There's no way. There's no way that somebody would tell me, yep, I trust that 100%, wouldn't question it. So if that's true, why is that person still in office? Because we're freaking distracted. We're distracted by things like Facebook. We're distracted by all this division. We're so busy fighting each other about what we're allowed to call each other, what words you can use, that these people are making out like bandits off of your backs, off of the hard work that you're doing. These people are profiting off of that. And we allow it because in exchange we get Xbox and we get iPhones. And you know what I mean? Like, we've missed the boat here. We've missed the whole damn point of what we're supposed to be doing here. This life, there's no way this life was intended to work 40 hours a week, have a kid, raise the kid, keep working through all of that, and then retire until when you're in your 60s, be a grandfather or whatever, and then that's it. Like, that's what it's all about. That's why we're here. I refuse to believe that that's all this is about. Like, that would be such a waste of all of this energy. I mean, for this reality to be real, for this to be happening right now, there are so many things that had to happen the right way. So the spacings had to be right between us and the sun, the temperatures, plants have to grow to create oxygen for us to live, whether you're talking about algae or green plants. That takes a whole lot of energy for them to create oxygen so that humans can breathe it and live, right? Like, there's so many things that have to happen for us to be able to continue moving forward, hopefully. I mean, the amount of animals that die, the amount of plants and things that are shipped into grocery stores, all of this to sustain what? You freaking having a kid? All of this is happening so you can have a kid and work 40 hours a week for some company so that you can get a retirement one day and then, like, relax when you're old and sick. I mean, at this rate, with the amount of pollutants that are in our food and the chemicals, there's no way when someone like me so I'm 32, right? Born in 88. So by the time I get to retire, there is no freaking way that I don't have some sort of cancer or some sort of, health issue that's going to restrict me from actually enjoying those later years in my life, right? You're going to be well out of your peak. You're going to be on the down slope. You're going to be on your way out when you finally get to relax a little bit. But what did you accomplish? For a lot of people, not much. And that's the thing. If there's a message in this quarantine episode, I mean, what is your purpose? What are you doing this for? Why are we here? Right? That's a question that nobody has an answer to outside of religion. And even then, I mean, I'm not going to dissect religion, but you're going to tell me we're doing all of this because, like, we have to, it's a test for this being. He put us here to worship him. And what happens in the meantime doesn't matter. As long as you, like, that's it? That's what this whole thing's about? Like, there's got to be more. There has got to be more. At least for me. I'm not okay with just accepting that as the end all be all. This is why we're here. Like, there has to be more, a bigger purpose in this. So I'm really curious for anyone who listens to this thing. What is your purpose? Like, why do you go to work? Right? Why do you go to work every day? I did this with my over the phone with my younger brother, who's 21. I was kind of spitballing this at him. But like, what is your purpose, right? So you go to work every day, right? Or let's say, so we'll use him for an example, because I don't think he actually listens to this, so he won't be offended that I use his personal information. So he's going to school, working at a grocery store, right? So I ask him all the time, like, well, what are you going to school for? Why are you going to college? What's the purpose of you going to class every day? Because you have to decide to go. You decide to go to college, right? You decide to drive to class and do the homework and all those things. So why? What are you doing it for? And you can deduce that, and he could deduce that down to, well, I'm doing it because, like, I think it's going to give me a leg up whenever I figure out what it is I want to do with my life. Which I think is what a lot of people in college are doing that for, is, well, even if I don't know what I want to do when I'm out of college, this will at least give me, it'll give me a degree, which should, in theory, what they've been told since they were little kids, is you need a degree to get a good job, which in 2020 isn't exactly true, depending on the job and depending on the degree. But in most cases, if you just get a business degree or a biology degree, like, you don't, a bachelor's in business doesn't get you very far, compared to people who don't have a bachelor's in business but spent 4 years working, right? So that's what he's going to school for, is, well, I'm hoping I'll get that leg up, because that's what he's part of the generation, as a lot of people. I think it's more generations than just one that's been given that idea that you need to have that degree. I'm part of that generation. I just fought it because I've never thrived in the traditional classroom environment. I like to do things with my hands and get it done, like this podcast. Like, I didn't know anything about podcasting before I started. I just started doing it and figuring it out and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And that's how I learn things. I don't do well regurgitating from a book for, you know what I mean, 4 different subjects at the same time, all within 1 week, which is what college finals are, is within a 1 week span. I have to regurgitate the last 3 months of 4 different subjects, and I have to retain all of that so that I can regurgitate it on this test. Meanwhile, I'm retaining very little because your brains don't really work that way. So anyway, so he's going to college so that he can potentially have a leg up whenever he gets done, and hopefully along the way find something that interests him so that he can find a direction to go in this life, right? So that's a good start, I guess. But then what? Why? Why do you need the leg up? What's the leg up for? What does that even mean, a leg up, right? And that we deduce to, well, money, right? You want to have a good paying job. You want to be able to have a good career. And that's why he was going to college. So then you go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so why do you need money? Why do you need lots of money? And that's where things start getting a little bit blurry, because you don't really need it. You want it. We don't know exactly why. We know we don't like it when we don't have money. Right? If you don't have money, things are really hard. Things are really hard for you in this current reality. But if you do have money, those things aren't nearly as hard anymore. So on that point, yes, we want money, but I don't see the connection to where we decided you need a lot of money to be successful in this life, right? An excessive amount of money. People like Bezos and this freaking Vermont senator. Like, what do you need $257 million for? Like, really? Unless you're building, you know, hospitals and schools in other countries, like, or you know what I mean, putting it towards something. What do you need? Why do you need that? And I think the average person wouldn't know what the hell they would spend that on. Like, obviously, you could spend it, but if you got that much money, like if I had $257 million, like I'd start putting it toward water research because I think we need to figure out what the heck's going on with our water and how to clean it and, maybe fund people that are already doing it. But like if it was just my money and I was just some senator, like what the hell would I need that amount of money for? Or if I'm Jeff Bezos, I created a company that's cool, I'm worth billions of dollars. Like, why? What do you need that much money for? There's been a lot of studies and reports coming out of, most people over the age bracket, Jesus, the wage bracket of around like I think it's 70 grand. Most of them are using. We'll just say even $100,000. Once you make more than that, like not a whole lot changes for you. The difference between making 100 grand a year and 200 grand a year, when it comes to your essentials, not a whole lot changes. You could buy more expensive toys, right? And you can go on more expensive trips, and you'll do but you're just going to spend more money once you get to that point. So if that's true, which there's been several of these reports, if that's true, if it doesn't matter, that doesn't make that big of a difference. I don't want to say it doesn't matter because definitely it matters, but if it's not that significant in your life, once you get over that hump, then what is the point of acquiring all that money? And that's a question I don't think we're asking ourselves. I don't think we're really looking at why are we doing all these things? Like, why do I work at Walmart? And I'm not shitting on Walmart, but like, why are you working for them? So you can make money. Okay, cool. You're making money now. Great. Now what? Well, now I need more money. For what? Like, if you're already making enough money to sustain, I think it's this weird inherent thing in humans of we want more. There's never enough. There's this insatiable thirst for more. We want better things and we want more of them. We want abundance and we want things to be nicer, better, improved. Always constant state of improvement. That's what we want as humans. At least societally, that's what we're doing, and that's what it sure seems like our focus is what we want more and we want nicer things. While at the same time wanting to work less, but being willing to work more. And I just don't know, I just don't see, I feel like we're out here chasing our tail. We're all trying to get this money and spending our time to get that money so that when we finally get the money, we can have the time. Like, we're going to spend 40-something years of our life, assuming you retire when you're in your 60s, you're going to spend 40-something years working so that you can not work. Hearing that in my headphones, causes me to take pause. You're going to spend 40 years working so that you can work less then. I don't know too many people. I have heard of a few people that do this, but I don't know too many people that are seeking balance now, right? It's all, we need to work up to this thing. We need to accumulate wealth. We need to get all these degrees. We need to work super hard in our first 40, or let's say in your first 10, so that you can, spend 10 years trying to better yourself and then spend the next 30 working really hard and acquiring things and accumulating wealth so that when you're old, you can do less. And if that's all you're doing, I think you're doing this wrong. and it's just my opinion, which I know it's not worth much, but that seems really futile. That seems like you're wasting this opportunity. We live in a reality, we operate in a reality with endless possibilities, no restrictions. There's nobody standing outside of your door with a gun saying, "Hey, you're going to work today, right? Cool. That's where you're going. You want to go somewhere else? You can't. You're going to work today. All right. Have a good drive to work. There'll be somebody waiting for you when you get there." That's not happening. If you don't want to work there, you don't work there. Work somewhere else. Don't work. Go to school. I mean, don't go to school. You can do whatever the hell you want. So why are we acquiring very small amounts of money? Meanwhile, certain people are acquiring a whole lot of money. Like, why are we playing that game? Aren't there more important things for us to be doing than worrying about money? We just put so much power into it, and then here we are dealing with a health pandemic. And you've got, I don't know, most of the people that I've seen in the grocery stores are pretty young. I see most of them in their, teens, 20s. Mostly young folks working at grocery stores, and they're putting themselves at risk. Most of the time I see them with little to no PPE. Making what? Minimum wage? Those people should be rewarded and compensated for the sacrifices that they're making being in that environment. But the question, well, where does that money come from? Well, why don't we have money set aside for this type of stuff? Or why does it need to be money at all? Why can't we compensate them in other ways? Instead, we take it for granted, like, oh, that's their job. They signed up for it. Nah, dude, they're probably going to school, trying to go through the system the way they've been brainwashed to do. They're probably working that job while they go to school so they can barely scrape up enough rent to pay their apartment, their one-bedroom apartment that they're in. Like, they didn't sign up for this the same way that our health workers did. And even still, of course, those people need to be celebrated as well, but they deal with sick people every day. That's their job. A grocery worker their job does not normally entail dealing with life-threatening communicable diseases. Like, they didn't sign up for that. But they're doing it anyway because that's what you do, right? That's the resiliency of the human kind is when shit hits the fan, like, everybody just does what needs to happen and then assume that we'll figure everything else out later. The problem is right now our current system doesn't really have any intentions of taking care of things when all of this calms down. They want things to go right back to normal because that's when they were thriving. All of these bureaucrats, all of these politicians and lawmakers and lobbyists, they all thrive. All these corporations, they all thrive in the old world, in the way things were, in the consumption-driven economy where all people cared about was working so they can get money to buy stuff. That's our culture. That's what we've been doing for decades. And they don't want that to stop. That's why they're making these big pushes, even though this pandemic, this COVID is mutating. In India, there's a completely different strain of COVID right now. And they're freaking out about, like, okay, well, we have all these tests around the world that they're trying to find a vaccine or a cure for this thing. Like, but what about us? Now we have a whole nother one. So now we have to start over in India, and that can happen again and again. The flu mutates a bunch. There's a whole slew of flu. There's a lot of strains that the flu has mutated into over the decades I don't have the research of how long it's been around, but it's definitely been around for decades at least. Influenza, there's so many different strains, and this new COVID, we're really only seeing not even the tip of the iceberg. We have no idea what we're getting into. But right now, all the governors and the government are trying to do is let's get back to work, because our old system doesn't support people not working. The old system does not support people only buying what they need, having a small little garden at their house so they don't have to go to buy as much food from the grocery stores. Maybe eating less meat, right? The system wasn't built around that. And so there's a lot of people that are scared about losing what they had, which was a very strong control, a strong grip over the people, and being able to control what they wanted to control, and acquire the amount of wealth and power that they've been out to acquire. And they're not really concerned with the well-being of the individual citizens. That's not nearly as important as the economy itself. There's a great meme out there with a picture of the dinosaurs seeing that asteroid coming and saying, oh no, what about the economy? Like, who gives a shit about the economy when all these people are dying and potentially could die more? Josh should be here pretty soon, so I'm going to mention one more thing and wrap this up. But for those of you who don't know, I coach volleyball, and my club right now, and it's not their fault. I mean, it's the business they're in, but there's been a tournament that's rescheduled 3-4 times now due to this pandemic. And it's like, I just don't see why anybody should be piling into a convention center the first moment that cases start going down. The cases aren't gone. This virus has not gone away. In fact, in a lot of places, the numbers are still rising. The number of cases are still rising. It's still being spread around. It's not like we've stopped this thing. And it's April 19th right now, today. And they're talking about, well, we're going to have tournaments in, 2-3 weeks. So you guys are ready for that, right? It's like, so you want us to start gathering hundreds of people, thousands of people in some tournaments. You go to some of these national qualifiers, I mean, it's thousands of people, and they're from every state. You've got people from New York, you'll have people from California, from Florida, from Washington State, like all over the place, all coming to one convention center for volleyball. But our priorities are so skewed right now in 2020 that we're legitimately thinking about, there are parents who are saying, yep, my 14, 15-year-old daughter, yeah, we're going to put them on a plane, fly to another state, and then for 4 days pass around the same ball that all these kids are going to touch, and they're all going to touch that ball, and then they're going to wipe their face when they're sweating, and they're going to, it's going to be worse than Mardi Gras because they're in one building. And then a lot of them are sharing the same 10 hotels, 15 hotels, because they're all in room blocks. So they all have to be around each other. It just seems incredibly reckless for any parent to think that that's a wise idea. Yeah, let's get on a plane. And fortunately, and I feel comfortable saying this because the vast majority, I think all of the parents, but I know the majority of the parents of the team that I was coaching before this pandemic basically ruined our season, most of them had really echoed my sentiments of, is this really worth it, right? We haven't practiced in several weeks. There's a very high risk of people getting this virus. I mean, just how many of those parents are healthcare workers? You have no way to know, but how many of them are working in the line of fire here? Which means if they have it and they're coming home every day and they may be carrying it, then their kid could be carrying it because they're all touching the same stuff. They're in the same house, unless they're doing an incredibly good job at quarantining within the home, which I just, with the way the poor, the weak ability, the inability rather, of people to be able to socially distance themselves just in regular everyday errands and goings on, I have no faith that the majority of healthcare workers are doing a, you know, fantastic job of making sure their kids don't potentially get like, it would just be so, like, they're going to wear PPE at home. You're telling me every single nurse is going to be wearing gloves and a mask when they feed their kid dinner and read their kid a story at night, you know what I mean, or help them with their homework? Like, I just don't think that's very realistic. I think they understand that it's a collateral damage and that, you know, they try their best to wash their hands as much as they can, but if it's in your lungs, I mean, you could be passing it. So if any of those kids, their parent was a healthcare worker and potentially was carrying it, let's say one of them was carrying it, that means everyone in that gym is going to get it by the end of the weekend because they're all using the same bathrooms, they're all buying from the same vendors, and they're passing the same dirty volleyball around. Each team has 10 kids. So if one kid has it, now all 10 on that team, because they're going to practice and pass that ball around. So everyone on that team's going to have it, and then everyone on that team's going to go 10 different directions. All 10 of them are going to go 10 different places and infect, potentially, according to the thing, according to, what's the right word? The science, I guess, the research that we know so far, they think it's contagious. So one person one person who's infected will then go and infect 2 people. That's what they're saying the infection rate is with COVID-19 is, if I'm infected, chances are I'm going to go and infect 2 people. And then each one of them is going to go and infect 2 people, and so on and so forth. There's a chart that kind of ranks infection rates based on what the disease is. But like, that means each one of those 10 kids from that team is going to go and infect 2 more people. And that's not even counting their parents, anyone that's coming with them, their siblings. Like, all of those people are going to be passing it around. And there's no way, after 4 days of being in the same convention center, the same hotels, they all eat at the same restaurants because there's only so many restaurants within that radius. Like, that whole town, the locals there, it's going to explode. And then every one of them is going to go home because it lasts weeks and you're only at the tournament for 4 days. So if you have this thing for 2 weeks, you're for sure bringing it home. Anyone else on that airplane that you're flying on potentially can get it. Whoever you're sitting next to or in the vicinity of. I mean, it's just the potential, because not everybody is real good about their distancing and their PPE measures. Just the potential for this to spike again is so high. But rather than just take care of the people and work out a stimulus check or work out a universal basic income situation, we've got plenty of economists that could help you with that. We had a Democratic candidate, Andrew Yang, who was building a platform on it. I bet you he has some ideas about how that might work. Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we having a legitimate conversation about universal income right now? I think that's a mistake. And Josh is here. So I'm going to cut this right around here. I hope this is giving you something to think about. I hope this is some food for thought that, make you ask some of these questions, and let's do some digging and find some solutions. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.